All here.
On the programme this morning, how can a foreign driver clock up £20,000 in unpaid parking tickets in Medway?
Well, I think it's fair to say that this is somebody who is taking the you-know-what out of us and the system.
This morning, we'll find out how they've been getting away with it.
Also coming up for you, the latest in a series of tough storylines on Quarry sees it focus tonight on male rape as one of its key characters is attacked by a new friend.
It's that bottling up through shame and fear that really threatens to bring him down.
So we'll be exploring what impact the storyline will have. Plus, we'll bring you all the latest from Russia as we speak to Panorama documentary maker John Sweeney, and we got something for the weekend, if you love gin, that is.
Oh yeah, gin.
Heads up, yeah, keep listening.
Anna Cookson.
And Stephen Allen.
Call 03459 811111.
Breakfast.
BBC Radio Kent.
6 minutes past 8. Good morning. Breakfast with Anna and Steve. So it's been revealed a foreign driver has racked up over £20,000 worth of unpaid parking tickets in Medway in a single year. What would you do about this situation? The council's been forced to call in an overseas bailiff company to chase the owner of the Bulgarian-registered vehicle, who's amassed nearly 300 tickets. Councils say they're struggling to trace drivers if the car is registered overseas. Mike Rutherford is a motoring correspondent and chief columnist for Auto Express.
Well, I think it's fair to say that this is somebody who is taking the you-know-what out of us and the system. Parking offences, you know, there's one set of rules that apply in parts of Europe to Brit drivers. There's another set of rules that applies in Britain to people from Europe. It's not working, is it? Clearly.
These drivers in Chatham gave us their reaction.
There's nothing I can do about it. The council, it's like the Dartford tunnel toll as well. They get away with it every time. We go through there, leave it a day, get a fine. It's unfair.
Nothing surprises me these days where these local authorities are concerned. Why do they allow it to get to that stage?
I mean, we work with ANPR, the automatic number plate recognition system now, so if that should be flagged, then the car should be impounded.
I'm sure for the council, it's a lot of work trying to find out who that owner is. And I'm sure that only when it gets to the sum of £20,000, it's really worth chasing.
The British Parking Association is calling for better enforcement and for every car driven in Britain to be properly registered. Nick Freeman is a motoring lawyer, famously known as Mr. Loophole. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Stephen.
So, cameras are everywhere. We can't move without something have a look at us. So with all of this going on, how do we not have the ability to make someone pay up?
Well, I imagine what's happened here is that the council have got judgments against it, this particular person, we don't know who it is, for non-payment of fines. Because obviously if you get a fine, there's a system in place, and if you don't pay it, eventually the council will take you to court and they'll get judgment. And then, of course, the bailiffs are contacted. And what will then happen is the bailiffs either need to locate the person or the car, and they can seize the car. They can seize an item to the value of the amount of money outstanding. And I don't understand how it's gone so far. Clearly, I think the councils across the country need to update their systems. So, for example, if somebody is going to issue a ticket, as he's about to issue a ticket, he would know immediately whether that there have been previous outstanding and unpaid tickets on that, because if there is, he can then call the authorities and it can be dealt with straight away. I also think we need to sharpen up what happens at the ports. I think one solution will be to have some sort of computer system, an app, whereby when somebody wants to come back into the country, we know automatically whether there are outstanding fines against that person, against the registered keeper of the car, because that's who we're concerned with, and of course then that can be dealt with at the port. So I think we're living slightly in the dark ages as far as fine collection is concerned for foreign drivers, but it is worth pointing out that when you drive abroad, or when one drives abroad, if you get a parking ticket and you don't pay it, provided it's not a lease vehicle or hire vehicle, I'm not advising people not to pay it, but the reality is you will not be pursued for that. But obviously here we have a massive amount of money, and the person concerned, I imagine the car's registered possibly in a false address, and that's why maybe when people come into the country they should produce with their passports the equivalent of a V5 to provide some authenticity about ownership, the registered keeper of the car. So there are things that can happen, but ultimately, when you have a car that's registered with false details, it's highly likely that person is going to avoid detection. He shouldn't avoid detection, because clearly this car I don't know whether it's in the country now or out of the country, but if it's out and is going to come back in, the car should be seized. But I doubt very much that the car's worth £20,000.
But then, this is the question that must be in a lot of people's heads. As soon as you see this vehicle, why is it not clamped?
Well, it depends whether it's... I understand this vehicle's actually been parked on the roads, and it should be clamped. But what I'm saying is the people who are issuing the tickets don't realise of the outstanding payments, that they're not tying up loose ends. The system, the computer equipment in place is not saying, here is a car that owes £20,000, we need to clamp it, we need to seize it. That isn't happening, and that is the problem. And that's why I say we're living slightly in the dark ages as far as this is concerned. So it's our own fault because we don't have a system in place which actually, it wouldn't be complicated to deal with it, to clamp it, to seize it, to sell it and to release, to realise some of the monies. But we're not doing that because the equipment that's in use isn't that sophisticated.
So, do you think that we just need to spend a bit of money on it? And actually, economically, it might make sense, because if we could recoup fines that we're owed, they might pay for itself and some more.
Well, it's very expensive to pursue these. We're talking about Bulgaria, which is part of the EU, but I don't believe that in Bulgaria parking tickets are criminalised in the same way that they are here. And I'm not sure how enthusiastic the authorities in Bulgaria will be in providing the correct information. So the easy way of dealing with it will be if the car came back into this country. If it doesn't come back into this country, I think it's going to be very hard to locate the driver, because I imagine that the driver will have provided false details, and I can't see the Bulgarian authorities being enthusiastic to trace him.
So does it actually work out as better value for money for us to just let these people get away with not paying the fines?
Sadly, yes, because it's so expensive to pursue it. And, of course, your listeners and myself as a driver feel it's totally unfair, and it is unfair, but nothing's perfect. We could take steps to make it much better, simple steps, as I say, by updating our equipment, by producing a V5 when we come into the country, or the equivalent to prove who the vehicle's registered to. And we're not doing that. And it's the same when you go over the Dartford Tunnel, the Queen Elizabeth Bridge. An enormous number of foreign drivers are avoiding detection, and all we want is a simple system. When they come back in, there's something flagged up at the port. Excuse me, you owe X £100 or whatever it is. Thank you very much. Otherwise, we're seizing your truck. And it's not complex. It's not particularly difficult to resolve, but there has to be a will to do it, rather than simply just complaining and saying this is outrageous, which it is. We need to do something about it. We need to be proactive.
Now, it was only, I was surprised to find out this, that if a car with a foreign plate is in the UK, it can stay here for up to 6 months without having to change plates and register. That applies across most of the EU countries. So, yes, and so what happens is a car comes over here, it stays here for 5 months and 30 days or 29 days. It then leaves the country for a few days and it comes back in, and it doesn't need to register. And that's why we need to change that system, so that when you come into the country, you produce proof of who the registered keeper is, and a record is kept of that. So we have some means of pursuing who you are if there is a problem. And if I move to France, would it be the same thing? Could I move there for 5 months?
Yes, exactly the same thing. So, particularly for insurance purposes, if you want to take your vehicle abroad, they will insure you, but if you're out of the country, normally for more than 6 months, the insurance will lapse. So typically what people do is they cross over a border and then come back in again.
Oh, thank you very much for that. Motoring lawyer, Mr. Loophole, Nick Freeman. What would you do about this? If you were in charge of trying to sort out this problem, what would you do? Now